The white dress felt like a cage. Standing in the bridal suite of the Grand Oak Hotel, 28-year-old Elena Martinez stared at her reflection and barely recognized the woman looking back. Her mother had spent 3 hours perfecting her hair into an elaborate upside-down braid. The vintage lace gown had cost more than her first car. 200 guests waited downstairs in a garden decorated with thousands of white roses. Everything was perfect. Everything was wrong. Her hands trembled as she reached for her bouquet. In 6 minutes, the string quartet would begin playing. Her father would knock on the door. She would walk down that aisle toward Brandon, the man she had been dating for 4 years, and speak vows that suddenly felt like lies. Brandon was successful, charming, and came from one of the most prominent families in Charleston. Her parents adored him. Her friends envied her. But 3 nights ago, she had woken up at 2 in the morning with a realization that shattered everything. She didn't love him. Maybe she never had. She had just loved the idea of being loved. The knock came, but it wasn't her father. It was Brandon's mother, Victoria, carrying a small box. The older woman's smile was cold and practiced. She told Elena that marriage was a partnership, a merger of families and futures. Love was optional. Passion faded. Security lasted forever. Then she opened the box to reveal a pearl necklace that had been worn by Brandon's grandmother, his mother, and now would be worn by Elena. It wasn't a gift. It was a leash. Something inside Elena snapped. The moment Victoria left, she kicked off her heels, grabbed her purse, and ran. She didn't think. She just moved. Down the back staircase, through the kitchen where confused catering staff stared, out the service exit into the blinding afternoon sun. Her dress caught on a hedge. She yanked it free, hearing fabric tear. She ran across the parking lot, her bare feet burning on hot asphalt, her heart hammering so loud it drowned out the world. A car was idling near the street, an old blue sedan with a dented bumper and a rosary hanging from the rearview mirror. The driver was a woman maybe in her mid-60s with silver hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She was checking her phone, waiting for someone. Elena didn't hesitate. She flung open the passenger door, threw herself inside, and gasped out 2 words. "Drive. Please." The woman's eyes went wide. For 3 seconds, that felt like 3 hours. They stared at each other. Then the woman looked at Elena's torn wedding dress, her smudged mascara, her wild, desperate eyes, and something shifted in her expression. She put the car in gear and drove. They didn't speak for the first 10 minutes. The woman drove carefully, checking her mirrors, taking random turns through neighborhoods Elena didn't recognize. Finally, when they were far from the hotel, far from the life Elena had just abandoned, the woman pulled into a small park and turned off the engine. She introduced herself as Diane Cooper. She asked if Elena was in danger, if someone had hurt her, if she needed the police. Elena shook her head and started crying. Not delicate tears, but huge gasping sobs that came from somewhere deep and painful. She told Diane everything. About Brandon, about the pressure from her family, about how she had convinced herself that comfort and stability were enough. About waking up 3 nights ago and realizing she was about to promise forever to someone who made her feel empty. About Victoria and the pearls and the crushing weight of expectations. She told this stranger things she had never told anyone, because sometimes the only person you can be honest with is someone who doesn't know you at all. Diane listened without interrupting. When Elena finally went quiet, Diane reached into the back seat and pulled out a faded cardigan. She draped it over Elena's bare shoulders. Then she told her own story. 40 years ago, Diane had married a man her parents chose for her. A good man, a kind man, but not her person. She had gone through with the wedding because that's what you did back then. She had 3 children with him, built a life, and spent 4 decades wondering what might have been if she had been brave enough to run. Her husband passed away 2 years ago, and while she mourned him and missed him, she also felt something she was ashamed to admit: relief, freedom, the chance to finally figure out who she was outside of someone else's expectations. Elena listened, her tears drying on her cheeks. Diane told her that running away didn't make her weak or cruel or selfish. It made her honest. The cruelest thing you can do to someone is marry them, when you know in your heart it isn't right. Brandon would hurt. Her family would be furious. But eventually everyone would heal. Eventually everyone would understand. Or they wouldn't. but Elena would be free. They sat in that park for over an hour. Diane shared her lunch, a turkey sandwich and apple slices that tasted better than the elaborate wedding meal Elena had planned. They talked about fear and courage and the difference between the two. They talked about the expectations placed on women to make everyone happy except themselves. They talked about second chances and new beginnings. Eventually, Elena's phone, which she had silenced, showed 63 missed calls. Diane asked her what she wanted to do. Elena took a deep breath. She needed to go back, not to the wedding, but to face what she had done. To talk to Brandon honestly for the first time in their entire relationship. To tell her parents that their dreams for her life weren't her dreams. To begin the hard work of building a life that was truly hers. Diane drove her to a coffee shop 3 blocks from Elena's apartment. Before Elena got out, Diane pressed a piece of paper into her hand with her phone number. She told Elena to call her anytime, for coffee, for advice, for nothing at all. Then she said something Elena would never forget. "You saved your own life today. That takes more strength than walking down any aisle." Elena went home. She changed out of the ruined wedding dress. She called Brandon and asked him to meet her. They talked for 3 hours. He was hurt and angry, but underneath it all there was something else. Relief, because he had been feeling it too. The wrongness, the forcing. They had been playing roles for so long that they had forgotten to be real. They ended it with tears and a strange kind of gratitude. The next few months were brutal. Elena's mother didn't speak to her for 6 weeks. Her father said he was disappointed. Friends took sides. Social media exploded with speculation and judgment. But through it all, Elena kept Diane's number in her phone. They met for coffee every Thursday. Diane became the mentor, the mother figure, the friend Elena didn't know she needed. Diane introduced her to her book club, a group of women who had all survived their own storms and come out stronger. Elena started painting again, something she had given up in college when Brandon said it wasn't practical. She got a small studio apartment with big windows. She adopted a scruffy rescue dog named Pepper. She started saying no to things she didn't want and yes to things that scared her. She went on terrible dates and great adventures. She learned that loneliness was different from being alone, and being alone wasn't something to fear. 2 years later, Elena stood in an art gallery displaying her first solo show. The paintings were bold and raw and honest, full of color and emotion. Diane stood beside her, beaming with pride. Elena's parents were there too. It had taken time, but they were starting to understand. Her mother hugged her that night and whispered an apology. Her father told her the paintings were beautiful. Brandon came to the show too. He brought his new girlfriend, a woman who seemed to genuinely make him happy. They talked like old friends, grateful for the bullet they had both dodged. He thanked her for being brave enough to run. He said it freed him too. As Elena stood surrounded by people who truly loved her, she thought about that desperate woman in a torn wedding dress who had jumped into a stranger's car. She thought about Diane, who had been in exactly the right place at exactly the right moment. She thought about how a single choice, one terrifying leap of faith, had changed everything. That night, Elena painted one more piece. It was a blue sedan with a dented bumper, parked in afternoon sunlight. She titled it The Getaway Car. She gave it to Diane for her 70th birthday. Diane hung it in her living room where she could see it every day. A reminder that it's never too late to save someone. Sometimes saving someone means driving them away from the wrong life so they can find the right one. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like. Subscribe to Kindify Stories for more tales of courage, compassion, and the unexpected ways strangers can change our lives. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to choose yourself. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you're heading in the wrong direction and have the courage to turn around. Thank you for watching, and remember that kindness begins with being honest, first with yourself and then with the world.